when it comes to parenting our children, I don't think it's fair to say one way works and the other way doesn't. But I see some people who struggle with raising their children, they don't have control of the situation, and maybe there's no relationship to count upon, really. But so what I want to do really is explain the relationship I have with my daughter, the expectations I have, the way we communicate, and maybe it'll go some way to helping other people. I'm not saying what I do is perfect for other people. It's perfect for us. You know, our relationship is incredible. It's always been this way. But I've always behaved a specific way with her, you know. I just always wanted, the focus for me, it wasn't about dominating her in any way. It wasn't like she's my possession. It was never anything about that. I just always wanted her to be the best she could be. And that's not trying to be someone that I want her to be. I just want her to be her purest self. So once you start getting older especially, it's like, don't lose your identity to other people. That was one of the big things. But even as a young child, as she's growing and I was nurturing her, it was always about having manners. They don't cost anything. It takes very little time to say please, thank you, you know, things like that. And these are great ways to behave. You know, I don't want to detract too much, but sometimes you can treat people horribly and you expect results. So for instance, if you're going through a drive-through, maybe the people that are serving you can look down at, maybe you talk bad down to them because you think you're better than them. Do you really think your service is going to be great? Can you trust the quality of the food they're giving you because you've now treated them horribly? Now, if you're kind and courteous to people, you actually find they go the extra mile for you. And it's just a great way to be. Why not make someone else's day good and make yourself feel good? I don't see how being an arsehole makes you feel good in any way. And that's the point I'm getting across there. So being negative is only going to make you feel negative anyway. So there's no reason to be like that. So I've always empowered her to be herself. And we've always had this open relationship where I've always just been very transparent with her in general, and she's always been very honest and open with me. And I mean, you know, some people, they get confused by that, how is that even possible? And it's through communication. Communication is the biggest thing ever. The one thing she's always known with me is that lying is the worst thing you could ever do with me. I lose respect. Once you lose my respect, I don't trust you. If I don't trust you, then what we're talking about, you know, there's no point. I'm not going to sit here and try and decipher things if you're not going to be transparent with me. So if you want to have a conversation with me specifically and you want to have my respect, then just be honest with me. I can be disappointed by something you do, but that disappointment can fade, because as long as you learn from it, then who's perfect anyway, you know? So with her, she knows as long as she's honest with me, then it's fine. So like I said, we've got a very transparent relationship where she'll just tell me absolutely everything, and she's usually quite excited to tell me as well. So she recently, I don't want to say too much because I don't know how much is going to be seen, I guess, by other people. But so she recently took a liking to someone. And what's interesting, really, if we just rewind slightly back, we've been separated for a while. We've gone through ups and downs in the sense that she's always wanted to be with me, and it's like you have a heart pulled left, right, and centre. You know, she's really just. It's like when you feel trapped by a circumstance, you can't have what you want, and it's not easy. No one really listens. So she's had a bit of an issue through school where she's tried to open up to people, and no one's really listened. If anything, they judge and they get a preconception really based on what they don't know, and they just fill in the gaps, and they think they know everything and they don't know, and they're not listening. So she's constantly in combat really with the teachers. She'd argue with them a lot, and there'd be a lot of issues. And I've taught her, especially last year, because she was having a real hard time. And I said to her, I said, look, it's all right to be, you can be right about a lot of things, but you don't always have to put it in people's faces. For instance, if you think you know something and your teacher doesn't, you don't always have to point it out to them. I said, sometimes it's interesting just to watch people's behaviour rather than having to keep projecting onto other people. So, for instance, if there's kids at school that are being a nuisance, maybe they're being bullies, maybe they're just not very nice people. Sometimes you've got to think, what's their home life like? Are they projecting onto others to make them feel insecure? All these little things. Once you start to realise that, you can watch people, and it actually becomes quite interesting. So their attack of you becomes less personal about you, it's more about them. Again, once you start analysing people, you see that. So she's very good with emotions and reading people and situations too. And again, this has come from the communication we've had throughout her life. I've been very open with her, and I've always tried to guide her in the right ways. And some people would put it down to the fact that you're having, maybe you're talking too adult to a child. And I don't think that was ever the case. I think sometimes maybe I pushed it a little bit too far sometimes when I'm thinking, God, sometimes you just got to say less sometimes. But when I look at who she is today, I'm like, she's incredible. Now, part of that is obviously her personality. I'm not going to take credit for every aspect of it. That's not right at all. She's the one that's had to take action. But I've guided her in the best way I possibly can. And our relationship is as strong as ever. So I would argue that, you know, what I'm doing works. So she's gone into the new year after all the things I've said to her about calming down a little bit. You don't always have to be right. You know, it's just sometimes take a back seat. And just watch people more. So straight away she went into school with that attitude, and all of a sudden she was less stressed and less combative, and she had this mindset that she wanted to really do well this year. She wants to do great. She wants to do better. She was struggling to turn up to school. She lives with her mother, and she was always coming up with reasons not to go to school and things. But this year she took a more active approach. And because she's so centered, she doesn't want to copy people. She doesn't want to lose her identity to fit in with other people. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost. They try to mirror people. So if you think someone's popular or someone's strong, confident, whatever it is, people mirror them. And then a lot of the time, the people that you're following to lead are not good examples of leaders. That's really where the problem is. So you end up with these situations like you see in the movies where you've got these school kids who are not very nice and they think they're popular. And within their little core group, they are, and they're seen as cool. But there's many people that actually don't like them, and the people watching the movies, and you see these school kids, you don't like them anyway because you can see they're not nice people. So the reality is, if you see they're not nice people, why would you want to mirror them? So my daughter has that mindset. She looks and thinks, why would I want to be around these people? She's even had people try to make her one of the cool kids. You know, they approached her and said, look, you should hang out with us or something. She said, don't want to, you know. So she's strong in herself. She can tell people no. So what's happened this year, all of a sudden, you could call it the misfits, but it's not really misfits. It's just the people who know themselves and they're not prepared to change who they are, have sort of gravitated to each other. They've made like a little group, and they love each other for who they are. They don't try to change anything. And I'm like, that's a beautiful friendship to have. And she's never had that, and this year she has it. And there's someone she took a liking to, and it's complicated because I don't want to get into it because that's for her, and I don't want to sort of give anything away too deep with it. But her friends have been really, really respectful of it. So recently they went into the town centre and things, got a tram and all sorts of things. And the friends have took a step back so the others, so they can be together, so the two can be together. But like I said to my daughter later, I hope you didn't ignore people though, because you shouldn't be alienating people just because something's exciting or interesting. And she said, no, I'll never do that. Okay, I wasn't saying you did, I'm just trying to educate you on the fact that don't do that. But the boy themselves, when they're talking about them, they sound like really nice, very grounded, goofy. But I think being goofy is great. I think just be yourself. You don't have to play up to anything. There was a point where they were in the cinema apparently, and then she said to him, "Why don't you take your coat off? Why don't you take your jacket off?" And they said, "Well, it'll make too much noise. I don't want to cause a scene." That bothered. And apparently every time there was a loud sound in the film, they just unzipped just at that bit. That's hilarious to think about. I said, why would they do? Wouldn't it have been easy just to take it all off though, even if it makes a noise? And she said, I said that. But one thing she has said to him was, because you know when boys can be boys, they do things to annoy, but they do it from affection. So what she said is, I want you to be nice to me for the entire year. I want you to be nice to me. And he said, okay. And apparently he started doing something a little annoying. She said, you promised me you'd be nice to me. And he said, oh, sorry. He said her name apparently after every time. I'm not going to say her name, although most people probably figured out her name from many of my videos. But that was all quite nice. And then she said to him, you do know I'm just trying to teach you to be nice. And he goes, I know. And I thought that's really cool, because I was trying to say to her as well, it's important that you don't try to mold people too much. Let people be who they are. And it's for us to then accept people for who they are. You don't want to keep sculpting them, because then they lose their identity. So part of his charm may be that he's a bit banter, you know, he likes to have a little bit of banter and be a bit silly. If you take that all away, then he loses the banter and the silliness. So we don't want to be doing that to someone, do we? Because it's up to them to be themselves. So that's what I try to do, like how you being yourself, it's important you allow other people to be themselves, and then really then everybody's just being themselves. And I think that's a great place to be, and I think that's how she behaves. I've been ingraining this her whole life. One things I was concerned with was when you meet people and you start to mirror them, and then you lose your identity. And it's the one thing I've always pushed her away from. If she tries to mimic someone, let's say someone's got their ears pierced, and then she's like, can I get my ears pierced? It's like, yeah, but why do you want your ears pierced? And as long as she explains why, then I can say, look, I'll explain to her, like, look, it's your body, you do what you want to do. Of course, when she's too young, you've got to make a decision a little bit, but I do try to give her the freedom, because it's who you are. You do whatever you want to do, but understand there's consequences, and it's for you to own up to those consequences. So any decision and action you take, there are consequences to it, and it's really, and you are responsible for the consequences, for good and bad. You're responsible. And that's really where I teach her as well. So it makes her think twice about something, but as long as you thought about it, if you then decide that's what you want to do, then do it. I've got no problems with that. So I was recently talking to someone today, and it was like, okay, that was quite an interesting conversation. Again, not me for to judge. I'm not here to judge other people's path, how they treat their kids, how they raise them, and things like that. It's for each their own. They're having difficulties with their kids, though, and I sort of understood where the issues were. But it's not for me to pressure. I just explain the relationship I have with my daughter, and this is kind of where I'm getting on with this, because I'm talking about it. But a lot of the time I see it as communication issues and things. And like I say, my daughter, like, for instance, she has an experience for good and bad, and the first thing she wants to do is call me. She messages me, can you call? I've got a lot to say. It's like, what? And then we'll just chat for ages, and it's nice. But I was talking to someone I was talking about, their daughter was going through a pregnancy or something, and it's like the first instinct of the dad was to go looking for the boyfriend. And it's like, I said to her, I don't understand that. You know, I'm far too open-minded to have that attitude. It takes two to tango, you know, so it's two responsibilities. So how I feel about my daughter would be how I feel about the other person in the situation too, you know. So like, okay, things happen. There's no point like beating something to death over something that's already happened. You know, there's nothing, you can't rewind time. You just have to deal with what the situation is. But I think it's very naive to start blaming the boy when it takes two to tango. It's ridiculous. So I wouldn't be like aggressive like that, because there's no need to. It doesn't solve a problem. It doesn't solve a problem, and it doesn't bring justice to a situation. Again, two people are at fault. Stop acting like one's an angel and one's not, you know. Things happen. But yeah, we was talking about that, and I was talking about just the relationship I have with my daughter, where she would message me and we'd just like, and then we'd do video chat and talk for ages. And it's nice because she filled me in a whole weekend of how she was hanging out with her friends for the first time, or a lot of them for the first time, where they're just going out around town and they're just going in and out of shops, they're buying themselves some things, they're treating themselves, they're getting some lunch, all these little things for a 14-year-old. I think it was a great experience for her, you know. I am too protective of her, and in all honesty, sometimes things are happening. Like, I say a lot, like, I want her living with me and I want her home, and I can't say for sure, in all honesty, whether I'd have felt comfortable her doing that with her friends, because I am protective of her, and I think personally I'd have been too protective. But what had happened is she'd gone home to her mum after the holidays, so she'd gone back to her mum, and then she's visited one of her friends, and their parent then took them into town, and then from there they started getting the tram and going different places, which was, I guess, was all agreed. But they're all safe together and things, and it's nice, you know. So like I was saying, if she was with me, that's what I'm saying, no one's perfect. If she was with me, would I have done all that? I don't know. In all honesty, I don't trust other people too well. So yeah, I mean, I'd be more likely to be the one to drive her into town, to be totally honest. And then I'd probably make sure everything's. I'd probably be a bit too much, to be honest. I'd be nervous dropping her off, leaving her. Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, she's had the experience away from me, and it's been nice that she's updated me on it after. Let's just leave it there. But yeah, it was nice, because I was hearing the whole story about how everything unfolded, about a boy she likes for the first time, really, and it seemed like it's something where they're respectful of each other. It's nice. But it's nice that I only know this because she told me it all. You know, she literally filled me in for like 2.5 hours, I think, or an hour. I can't remember how long. It was going on for a long time, and she was really going into a lot of detail, and it was really beautiful. There were some other things, I can't remember exactly what happened. Like the boy, for instance, when they got picked up by the parent, the boy waited until she got in the car, and then he went back to get his tram home. Now, they're only 14, you know, but he was making sure that she was safe and things. I thought these little things really matter, you know. These things matter. And what was happening, as a group, they were walking around the shops and things, but apparently he was always waiting for her, or always gravitating to her. And then sometimes he would walk off, go around the corner, and then she'd go looking for him, and he would have actually already be coming back, and then he'd smirk, knowing full well she was looking for him. It's like, it's all cute, isn't it? Yeah, I felt really happy for her that she's having that experience. And then I hear of other people, for instance, who have children that are going a bit wild, they're dysfunctional, they don't have those situations. And like I say, a year ago, my daughter didn't. But it's about having high standards in your life. And then eventually the things that are worthwhile having, they will come to you because you set that standard in your life. And too many people, they try to take shortcuts. So they try to gravitate to wherever the popularity is, even though you have to lose your identity to be part of it. And then you're just miserable anyway. And then those end up bullying the people who try to live their life in alignment with themselves, where they're actually happy, because their misery, they cannot stand to see someone else be happy doing what they want when they've had to sort of sell all of themselves to fit in with other people. But like I say, as a parent, it comes down to the communication, of course. You know, I think you can be too strict and stern where you lose reality with your children. So I never understood that. You know, I'm firm, but I'm fair. That's the thing I've always been. It's always been about like transparency though in the communication. I just think that is vital. So I think anyone that's got an open relationship with their children where they can talk to them about anything, you'll find they're the most balanced children of all. You need to be able to talk to your parents, otherwise you're just going to hold everything in, and then you've got no one to confide in. I've never wanted that for my daughter. You know, I spoke recently about Christmas. When she gets up for Christmas, it's like, just tell me when you get up, and then I'm going to be tired anyway. I don't see the point of making you anxious on Christmas when Christmas is their day, not mine. Like, it's obviously all of our days, but it's more about children. So as growing up, I never liked that anxiety waiting to get up and open my presents. I just want her to be happy. So just tell me, and then we'll go and do it. We had Christmas, I think 5 o'clock in the morning or 5:30. I think it's 5. And as actually I woke up and went to check on her, and she was awake, and I said, why don't you just tell me? She hadn't been awake that long, thankfully, and then we just enjoyed Christmas and things. But it's nice watching her grow, you know. And I can't say at any stage she's ever disappointed me. I can't say at any stage our relationship's been fractured. We've always been in sync, you know, because I don't expect her to be perfect. That's really important. I've always said that. Even when it comes to like grades at school, I have no expectation. All I ask is that she tries. You know, so sometimes she like gets frustrated that she can't do something. I'm like, I don't care. And I said, I don't care from a place of like being like, I don't give a shit sort of thing. It's nothing to do with that. I just don't care about the outcomes as long as you're trying, you know. It's like, no one's perfect. I think the bar gets raised so high that if you don't reach that, then you're not good enough. It's like, no, you don't need half this shit anyway. People say you need this grade, this grade, this grade. Most of that doesn't matter when you're applying for jobs. You know, so if you want to go in, I said, and then I'm like, you know, I've been there, done it myself. I've passed a university course. I've passed college. You know, half of it's irrelevant unless you need that skill. Like, for instance, if you want to work in a museum, maybe you're going to have to go and do something to do with history and something that's curated in that sense to get the opportunity in a museum. Maybe off the street, you just can't get that job. But in terms of like making you a load of money in the future, if you're going to talk about money, you can make a lot of money just by gaining a skill and being great at it. You don't necessarily have to get the education and the degrees and the grades for it. It doesn't make a difference. But sometimes the grades can open a door to an opportunity. With her and her personality, who she is, I don't see her doing any of those things. That would be too stifling for her. She's more of a free spirit, and I think she'll figure out what she wants in life. And I don't personally think any of these grades are going to make a difference to her life path, in all honesty. So that's why I don't care. So there's no pressure from me. But there wouldn't be any pressure anyway, because, you know, I know what I was like at school. Some of us don't figure things out until we're older, and that's fine. We're in a life of discovery, and it's like, I think expecting children to be an adult is ridiculous. So I've never understood that. And it's like I say, as long as you concentrate and try at periods when you can, then, you know, as long as you know in your heart you tried, that's enough. For me, that's enough. The outcomes, I just don't care. So if she come to me and said, "Oh, we just got my grades in, and like, and I failed all of them," okay, but did you try? Yeah, I was trying my best. Then I don't mind. It's like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I don't care, because half the tests are crap anyway. Who wrote them? You know, it's shit. What do you learn at school? Half of it's nonsense. I don't want to derail too much because it's supposed to be about her. But if we start going about education, for crying out loud, there's no education on finances and money. At least when I was at school. Why not rather than let people get credit cards at a young age? Why not educate them on what managing money's like before we can even start applying for these things? We don't have any of this education. At least I didn't. So there's certain things that really we should be taught beforehand anyway. I think that'd help. But when it comes to their children, yeah, I just see a lot of parents that are hard on their kids. They have no personal relationship with them. They treat them like a commodity, like a resource. I hear some reports of where people say, oh, as soon as they reach 18, they're out. They have to fend for themselves like an adult. It's like, what sort of vile human being are you to force your children to do that? At 18, you're not an adult. You've just literally just finished childhood and you're growing. You're still being nurtured. It's outrageous to think they should just be an adult. And again, I talk about this you can either be the repeater. You can either be the ancestral repeater or you can be the chain breaker. I'm a chain breaker. So I rather just cut ties with whatever I've learned up to now and start it new. And that's what I do. But a lot of people, if they've been abused or mistreated, they'll repeat that pattern. And I never understand that. Just because you suffered, you don't have to, someone else doesn't have to suffer as well. You don't have to normalize suffering. And I think that's where the problem comes. So some people are literally, they're traumatized and they take that trauma out on other people because they feel it's valid. But it's like, how can that give you any satisfaction? That doesn't even make sense. Why repeat the pattern? It's obviously a horrible way to exist, and yet you continue in it. It's ridiculous. And now if you've got a terrible relationship with your children, maybe you can't put up with them any longer. But then there's no respect because there was never any respect built in the first place. Again, if it was built on a faulty foundation and it was continuing to be like that seemed to be the way you've built that relationship, then it stands to reason you ain't gonna have a relationship in the future. And I always say that, like, you don't have to stick with family. Just because you're born into a family, it doesn't mean that's where you stay. You may outgrow them. But, you know, I just think it's wherever you've put the time and energy towards and you've nurtured is where you'll see things grow. And it's up to people whether they want that relationship, you know. So if you're prepared to just throw your children out so quickly without any sort of care, then I think that just shows the relationship that was being built all along anyway, wasn't it? It was more of a financial transaction. And that's all it ever was. And I think that's quite sad, but to each their own. But then don't feel sorry for yourself after when your children abandon you and go off and they actually invest in themselves. Because they deserve better from life, don't they? Like I say, me and my daughter, we don't have that issue for sure. You know, she's welcome for as long as she ever needs to. You know, it's like she'll always have my support. Always. And she never has any expectation on her apart from always being honest, truthful and authentic. I don't want her to lose her identity to someone else. Just always be true to you. And I think when you're like that, you just can't be manipulated. And your standards are so high, you know. And I think that's where people need to get to, where their standards are high. You keep lowering your standards and you just forget who you are. You end up, the reality is if you don't respect yourself, you're not going to respect others. And that's why we see so much crime and so much hate in this world, because people actually don't respect themselves. They've given up, and they've just, because they don't respect themselves, they just have no respect for anyone else, so they just take and destroy it. So I look on and I just think, if you loved yourself enough, you wouldn't do that. It takes a lot of healing, doesn't it? It takes an investment in self, and it's like, wait a minute, what do you want for your life? Because what you're doing, you may feel is exciting, but it's definitely not fulfilling you. There's no way you're happy doing that. You might have a moment of exertion where you just think, oh, this is great, just because I'm causing havoc. There'll be a come down where you're bored and miserable of your life and you hate who you are. You have to learn to find who you are, aren't you, and get back to back to source, really. Get back to the purest version of yourself. Like I say, fortunately for me and my daughter, though, she's always been her purest version of self because I've always encouraged it. And at this point, she's getting to that age now where it is more about her. Like growing up, you're nurturing, aren't you? So it's like a lot of it's about you and the way you're educating them. Now it's more about her implementing that herself, and I get to witness it, and it's like she's incredible. You know, you're going to make mistakes along the way, of course we will, but I'm enjoying watching her grow into, I know she's only 14, but you're sort of seeing her adapting now and growing and making decisions, and it's nice that you see it putting into practice, you know. I don't fear anything. I don't worry about her. I know she can take care of herself. I know she's got her head screwed on. And I think some people, they're worried, aren't they? They're worried their children make this decision, they'll go and do this, they'll be reckless. I have no fear of that with her at all. Because her standards are so high, so she's not going to be impressed by anybody that's disrespectful, for instance. She doesn't like people that are disrespectful. She definitely wouldn't like someone that disrespects her. So her standards are high, so that's the standard she's set for her life. So then why do I have to worry? I don't. But yeah, she's a threat to people who are weak. That's the point, isn't it? I think once your standards are high, you're a threat to weak people. But the people with high standards, they'll appreciate and respect her for it. And that's where this group comes in, where she's got this really fun group of people who respect themselves so they can respect each other. And that's really beautiful. I'm really happy for her that she has that. And it's worth the wait. Again, you can always take the easy way out, but you just end up with it's a weaker foundation, isn't it? I've probably forgot an awful lot. My book, Heal Your Mind to Free Your Soul, has my very favorite chapter called Children, and I think that will really help people who are, I think going through trauma from childhood, but also trying to nurture children as well. That chapter will really help people. I've wrote things since, of course, but that just chapter sticks in my mind. I'm always aware that's a great chapter for people as a resource. But yeah, everybody has their own way of teaching and nurturing. But I always say that anyone that questions anything, what you got to do, like for instance, my daughter is the result. So all you got to do is look at. I think people will see her in the future, and you'll go, yeah, I get it. And it's like, see, that's what I'm talking about. Again, it ain't being a know-it-all. It's having that standard at the beginning, though. You don't parent a child trying to be a know-it-all. You be a parent a child because you love them and you want the best for them. And it's like, really, what do they need? And who do you want them to be? Like I said at the very beginning, I just want her to be her. I don't want her to be a mirror of me. I want her to be herself, and whatever that is. And in some ways, the more she grows, we are very similar to each other. It's quite beautiful. But it was never about trying to make her a version of me. That was never what I want for her at all. But if we share similar personalities, we share similar personalities. But I think that's what you should be doing for your children. Don't live vicariously through them as well. I see that with sports and things, or if someone's had a talent, they want their child to have that talent and they want them to focus. It's like, that's for you to live that dream. Don't force someone else to live your dream. People should be free. And I think that's really important, is to give them that freedom and room to breathe. But give them the tools to know what to do in a given situation and think of it like it is. I'm always talking about security and things. I'm always talking about like watching yourself, be aware of your environment. Don't just have your phone out everywhere. Pick and choose where you do things, because you can never trust everybody around you. So it's always have your bag in front of you. Don't put all these little things. It's like effectively, if you're observant and you're fully aware, less things can happen to you. You're aware of your surroundings, your circumstances, personal space. Again, these are all just other little things on top. It's like, don't be naive in a world that's there to take, but don't lose that innocence either, because literally it's what you make of it. You see a lot of people say the world is so horrible, but it depends. I think it depends on the places you go and the times you go. I'm not really a night person. I'm more at home at night. I'm not really. If you look at most things, they happen at night. So why would I put myself in places where it's dangerous? It doesn't make sense. I'm not an idiot. I'm at peaceful at night in my surroundings. It's not like you're terrified of going out doing them things, but I just inherently know there's bad things happening there, and I don't see the point of being around bad shit. And it teaches her that as well. You can have a good life if you keep yourself in a good circumstance. So why places? I've never understood that, where people go partying and shit on New Year's and Christmas and that, and they go clubbing and shit. It's like, why risk something happening though when you got such a beautiful moment just round the corner? To each their own. I don't take stupid risks with my life, and I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? Love yourself enough to value your health and safety. I think that's other avenues, of course, to it all. If you've got no respect for yourself, you walk down dangerous streets and put yourself in dangerous circumstances, and you can't wonder about how something happened. It's like, of course it was going to happen. Look where you placed yourself. Again, put yourself in a positive environment, positive results.